We'll also be recording this session and it will be up on our Facebook page as well. Hi everyone, this is Samantha at Education USA. I'm coming to you live from my house in Melbourne in regards to 5 kilometres and staying indoors. Here is Sarah as well and my colleague in Sydney. I'm going to allow Sarah to introduce herself to you and then we'll be leading you through today's program. It will take about an hour and we'll have many resources to share with you. So Sarah.
Thanks so much, Samantha. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Zamanzadeh. I'm the Education USA Coordinator based in Sydney. I assist students in New South Wales, Queensland, ACT, and oversee advisors in WA. I'll be tapping out and Samantha will be doing the presentation, but I'll join you all at the question and answer time in the end. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. We are using the Zoom webinar today. If you'd like to ask any questions through the course of the day, please raise your hand. I will also enable you to come off silent because right now you've all been muted and you can ask that question directly as well. If you're also joining us on Facebook Live, you can enter your questions there and Sarah will help relay that question back to me as well. And in regards to what we're going to do, we'll simplify the process. This is really those aspiring for National Collegiate Athletic Association Division I and II student recruitment. My name is Samantha. I've been in the role as the country coordinator out of Melbourne coming up to my 5th year. I'm a former golfer at a Division I NCAA program in the US. So I'm incredibly passionate about this opportunity. I'm ecstatic that you're joining us today and that you're brave enough to even consider this opportunity yourself as well. I am representing Education USA. For those that perhaps don't know of who we are hired by the US Department of State. It's a US government entity in the US. Our sole purpose is that we get paid to help you get to US colleges. We're a free, unbiased service. We have close connections with all the US colleges. We represent all those US colleges. We are never going to tell you which college to pick. You need to be doing that on your own, but we are very much going to share a whole lot of resources with you, allowing you to find your best fit institution. So it's a pleasure that you're joining us today, and let's move through with some information. Normally this session I do as a physical workshop and I am with you. So we're going to be sharing quite a few things on the screen today. I'm going to be bouncing in and out of PowerPoint and some websites that I really want you to pay particular attention to. And if you've joined us in Education USA programming before, you would have noticed that we work on the 5 steps elements in regards to step 1, researching your options, step 2, financing your studies, step 3, completing your applications, step 4, the student visa, and step 5, the pre-departure. We can help you through that complete process. And today we're obviously going to significantly focus on step number 1. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of resources that I hope you're aware of before we get into the nuts and bolts of today's program. We have a lot of information on our website, and that's the web link there that you can see at the bottom. We have a session about applying to US colleges. So even if you're applying to be a student athlete, you still need to go through the process of what it takes to apply to a US college. And we also have a section there on playing sports at US colleges, and we've simplified that process in regards to the steps that you need to take. I'm just changing my screen view for a second. Give me a second. Another thing that we'd also encourage you to do is we have an EducationUSA Australia Facebook page. I assume that most of you who have joined us today know about that. I also encourage you to like and follow it if you haven't already. And we advertise all of our sessions through this, as well as have some great information there that you can find. Again, US higher education, the pathway as a student athlete can obviously be community colleges and TAFE, and the undergraduate 4-year degrees can be very much at NCAA institutions, which is what we will be focusing on for the rest of this presentation. I do want to obviously share, if you've never been to any of our sessions before, I wanted to show that with you here so that you were aware of the other associations that are also present. I'm going to also wanting to have a sense of if you've engaged with us and if you've been to any of our programming. And I also want to feel like that you're obviously involved in this presentation today. So I'm going to be launching a couple of polls. And the first one that I'd like to bring up on screen now is we're really curious if you've actually already been to one of our sessions. I'm going to put that on the screen now and give you a minute or two to respond. And that will also enable me to identify what I can also be talking and focusing on today. So if you've never been to any of our programs, a lot of this information is going to probably feel a little daunting. And the reason why that is that we've really developed this session to build on from the information that we provide at our general sessions. And we run general sessions about applying to US colleges and general sessions on sports scholarships as well. So please reach out to us if we share anything today that doesn't quite make sense, because we have a real mixture actually. We probably have at least a third of the group that have never engaged with our programming before. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks to those people who have introduced you to us. And we've obviously had that have come through our general sessions and our sports sessions as well. So thanks for joining us tonight. That is great. What we're going to now start moving through and drilling down into is the core courses. In regards to aspiring to an NCAA student, we always encourage you to start on the landing page at the NCAA. So you should all see this page being somewhat familiar. And what I'm going to now do is I'm going to share my screen and hopefully everyone can see the NCAA landing page. If I can be given a hands up from Sarah or someone else to let me know that they can see that and that's coming through okay, that would be great. Or even through the chat. Fantastic. So this is the landing page for the NCAA, okay, for international students. You should always bookmark this and have this as a starting point. The reason why this site is really important and what we're moving through in the next couple of slides is the fourth point down, the bullet first, it says looking for specific information about your country. Before I pull back to my PowerPoint, I want to show you what this looks like. You would actually click on this link, looking for specific information about your country, and it brings you up the whole world. We're in Australia and we're oceanic, so we're going to click Oceania. You will see that Australia comes up here. And what they've nicely done now is that the NCAA booklet, this booklet that they produce is about 500 pages, okay? And what you can see here is that they have categorized the whole country of Australia. So I am obviously from Melbourne, and I will click Victoria today. And when you click Victoria, it again will bring you to the Victoria summary pages, and I will just wait for the internet to catch up. And it will give you a summary of how they review Australia and Victoria. They also have the grading scale, and you'll see that has a comparison where it turns a C into a B. This is only for the NCAA. and we ask that you never change your transcripts to monitor these changes and reflect this. Your grade reports, which are called your transcripts, always need to obviously remain in how your college or school has graded you. Now, in this information, important information here, we have worked with the NCAA, and all those subjects there that are done through all of Victoria, further math, general math, legal studies, they are all approved core classes. So whenever that goes on your transcript, the NCAA knows that that is a core class. There's also a list here of denied classes. They have been denied for quite some time. If you're sitting there and going, I want to have physical education reevaluated, it will never be approved, folks. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't do physical education, but you need to be making sure that you meet your core courses in another component. So I'm going to just stop sharing this screen for a second. Give me 1 second as I return to the PowerPoint. And hopefully now you have my PowerPoint back, and that has worked okay. And again, if someone can let me know in the chat feature, that would be appreciated. So now we're back on the PowerPoint. And what I'd like to then show you is a couple of more things here. And I'm going to talk to you about the core courses. This seems to confuse a lot of people, but the NCAA have really categorized it into certain sections, okay? So not all courses that you do at high school will count as core. As a general rule, from years 9 to about year 12, you're doing about 30 subjects. So generally, you can always find 16 that will meet the 16 core. Now, for some of us in our states that we are from today, for instance, in Victoria, it is compulsory that you do English in years 9, 10, 11, and 12. It is also compulsory that you have 4 years English in the NCAA. For instance, if you're joining me in Tasmania, you can actually do a higher level English in year 11 and pass out of it in year 12. If you are aspiring to be an NCAA student athlete, you'll need to reevaluate whether you want to do that, because the NCAA expects for you to do 4 years of English. Okay, so they really simplify that process and how you can do those categories. They have obviously also given a bit of a description of what are included in those subjects. And just as a bit summary before we drill down a little bit further in the next couple of slides, the first section is obviously English. The next section is math. If you're aspiring to be NCAA Division I, you need to do at least 3 years of math. So that's at least year 9, 10, and 11. The natural and physical sciences are those classes like biology, chemistry, and physics. Also, in years 9 and 10, it's your general science. As long as you're burning Bunsen burners and doing experiments in those classes, that will also meet the requirement of being a lab science. So it never is an issue in regards to how we have that reviewed. So that's what that means as well. In regards to social sciences, sometimes some students struggle with this, and you need to be making sure that you do at least 2 years of social sciences. And again, sometimes that's more of a challenge for people in South Australia, because you have to do your personal learning project, which is a compulsory year 10 class, which sometimes takes out some options of doing social sciences. So be sure to really meet that and try and clarify that component is being met. If you are with us in year 9, that is fantastic, because we ask that you try and mud map your classes all the way through to year 12. If you have come to us later and you have only learnt about this US college opportunity, that is okay. But what's really important is that you need to at least track what you've done previously, whether that's year 9 and 10, and also do a focus through to year 11 and year 12, making that transition and making sure that you meet the requirements. I always recommend that you meet the NCAA Division I requirements, because if you're then good enough to be recruited as a student athlete, you will meet the academic requirements from the NCAA. I would not tell you to probably meet Division II requirements only, because if you're good enough to be recruited as a Division I program, and if you haven't met that requirement, you will not be eligible. So the only difference quickly between Division I and Division II is that you'll see that there's one less year of English required, and there's one less year of math required, and they've built an extra year into building it within the additional subjects. Okay, so this graph is really helpful if you're a visual learner in regards to where you are in regards to the 16 core. Again, this is a really nice graph that the NCAA provide, and it is in the outgoing student guide, and we'll reference that to you shortly. But again, if you look at doing 4 subjects from your 9th grade on that meet the core, as you can see there, you'll easily meet the 16 core requirement. So if you significantly focus on that, we've noticed that it makes it a lot easier for families in regards to that component. This is the worksheet that I say is a must that you fill in as a family. I always encourage families to fill it out first, and then I would encourage you to take it to your career planner or your career advisor at your school that can help map your classes. If you go to any of the schools that I work with, and I work with schools in Victoria, South Australia, Tasmania, and the Northern Territory, if you took this blank to your career practitioners, and the ones that know me, they will probably tell you to take it away, refill it, and have another go at filling that in. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting about participating in today's session is that, I'm just going to move through to another polling question, is I really wanted everyone to have a go at trying to calculate your 16 core courses and to fill in this worksheet before you attended today's session. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to respond to, again, this poll and see how many have had a go at trying to calculate your 16 core. And what we can do a little later towards the end of the session, if there are some specific questions that you have in regards to that, we will try and move through some of those questions. If not, I am more than happy for people to email me their specific questions in regards to if they're having trouble with calculating the core. So thank you for everyone that is finishing that poll. And it looks like 50% have already tried to fill out the worksheet. And 50% have not tried to do this yet. And again, that is okay. And what we ask is that you should have a go of this relatively soon. And this worksheet is really a simplistic way to make that happen. Again, that is a worksheet just to have it on a different screen if it was not clear in regards to being a little bit smaller earlier. As I said, not all classes will be counted as core. As you can appreciate, the NCAA Eligibility Center that works with international students in Indianapolis, which is where they're located, they can't make all classes core, but they can make a lot of classes core. So sometimes it's good to know what courses don't count. And we are going to share a resource document that is a public document that you can refer to. And we really want to share that resource with you today. And we'll move to that shortly. Now, as I mentioned, there's also the approved and denied listed courses on the country specific pages. That is the image that you can see in the center of the screen, and that's the internet site that I took you to a couple of slides ago. What that basically does, it converts the Eligibility Centre handbook, which is here on the right with the ice skater on, which is, as I said, about 400 pages, and it breaks it down into what's required in our states. If you are with us today and you are an IB, International Baccalaureate student, as you can already appreciate, and you probably already know, that is a global accreditation system that you'll get when you complete Year 12. And there is also a separate IB section within this guide that can also equate how your scores would be reverted to, again, by the NCAA. Remembering, the NCAA is really the front porch to creating this opportunity for you. They want to obviously have as many students come to US colleges and be a student athlete as possible. Their benchmark on your grades is relatively low. So even if you meet the NCAA eligibility requirement, you need to also make sure that your grades will also meet the academic rigor to the US colleges that you approach in regards to being recruited. So again, that's something to consider and something that you can be working towards, which is why it's always so important to have really good grades. Or you might be in the room today and going, Samantha, my grades aren't that good in Year 9 or Year 10, but now that I know what I want to do and I'm so focused in Year 11, they are going to be so much better. That's okay. And that's probably great, because all the NCAA and what US colleges want to see as well is they want to see upward progression from Year 9 on. So if you can continue to show your upward progression and that you are succeeding in your classes at school, that is really going to help in building your profile and your sports resume with US colleges. So I am now about to share another link from my screen. And let me just get that ready. What you're looking at there is a list of all the courses that are accepted under the categories of those requirements from the NCAA. So what is interesting is that most subjects, if not all subjects at the NCAA, are approved on course title alone. So if you have your school transcript and your classes are listed as in those titles there, they will be approved from the NCAA. If you have a thing on your transcript, and because your school wants the class to sound more interesting, and they call it wombats and kangaroos, the challenge with that is the NCAA would not know what that meant. But if that was an environmental science class, then your school would need to actually attach the syllabus to explain what that course was. And if it's just your regular science, environmental science class, it would then be approved, okay? So what classes are on your grade reports becomes also very important. What we also encourage you to do is have your Year 9, 10, 11, 12 reports also put onto a one summary page sheet that you can always be providing to your US colleges. So I am quickly going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. And I like my friends that are writing in the chat feature and letting me know that now they can see the policy for academic certification. Thanks, Sarah. And as you scroll through this document, this page actually tells you if your course title or subject has any of these names in it, they will not be approved by the NCAA. So accounting will not be approved. As we said, physical education will not be approved. So all these classes will not be approved by the NCAA. So you can be looking at your classes now and referring to this sheet here of page 2. Again, clearly on page 3, it will tell you what classes can be approved by course title alone. If you are working with your schools, and you think you should have classes that are approved that you believe are on this list, you could definitely have them reach out to Sarah and I, and we could at least share the process of how they could work with the NCAA in regards to having them reviewed and possibly included. So again, this is a great document and resource document that is a public document that anyone can refer to. And one of the things that we're trying to do with you today is to help give you some appropriate information and knowledge, and have you realize that there's some really good resources out there that can help you. We have come back to our PowerPoint now. And again, we showed you the screen about classes that won't count. If you are going to a religious school, you will notice if you are doing a religion subject in years 11 and 12, that can count for your core courses. It needs to be a comparative religious class, and that can be reviewed again. And you can look at the list of the course titles on the website, which shows you what's already been approved from your state. So that is always a way that you could help complete your 16 core. And if you were with us yesterday, Ryan Richards recommends that if you're struggling with your 16 core, then that's perhaps a subject that you should be making sure you do in year 11 and year 12 to help get your 16 core subjects to meet the criteria. There is a timeline on doing your high school studies. It needs to be completed within 4 years. So you need to do years 9, 10, 11, and 12 in 4 years. If you are at a sports school and you are extending your graduation and going over a 5th year, that is a concern. I would need you to clarify that with the NCAA. Now, we are sharing this information with you to help with clarity. Obviously, Education USA, we are not the Eligibility Centre. We are not the NCAA. So it's always important to make sure that you have everything clarified by them. And again, we are going to encourage you in a way that can happen. If you did not join me in yesterday's session, one of the things that we did organize and talk you through was to set up a profile account with the NCAA. The reason why we encourage you to do that, and that can be done as early as year 9, is that the NCAA will then know what year you're in, and they will give you emails and information in regards to what they're expecting you should be doing and what you should have done. So we do recommend that you all sign up for the NCAA eligibility account. And I encourage you, I've just changed my screen. Sorry, folks. We encourage you to at least start with a profile page. That is free of charge. It will take about an hour for you to set that up properly. You'll need to put in all your subjects that you're studying so that the NCAA knows. And they'll also ask you a whole lot more history, because as most of you possibly know, you can only go to the NCAA if you're an amateur athlete. So if you're being paid to play your sport, you need to check with the NCAA. Now, sometimes you may be on an Australian team, so they pay you to go to international competition. That is okay. But what's important is that you explain that to the NCAA, and they will take you through that process, and they will do that as you reach into your senior year. The only thing, interestingly, that turns your profile page into a certification account is by often taking mum and dad's credit card and paying $150 in regards to that. So that's the only thing that changes that account. And as you continue to communicate with coaches more and more, you then possibly need to turn it into a certification account, because the NCAA will only do a final review on your file if you have a certification account, which means you've also paid the $150. We've spoken to you about the high school transcripts. Sometimes that confuses people. That's also your grade reports. You would have done in your research that the US requires something called a grade point average. That is not something that you need to worry about as an Australian. Most US colleges will know that we don't calculate GPA, and they will have their own formulas that they will use to translate your grades anyway. So they never want you to doctor or change your results. So it's really important that you give them your original transcripts. So when we say original transcripts, I do that with a bit of a smile because families that don't work with EducationUSA often send about 50 pages of reports. So what they really want to see is the grade reports. That's often your mid-year report and your end of year report that has your grades within that. And what we always encourage, as we've already mentioned, is that I would work with your schools so that they could also create a one-page summary transcript result for you as well. So not only can that be sent to the NCAA, but what's also going to happen is that US coaches will want to not only know that you're a good athlete, but if you're a good athlete, they know that they can make you a better athlete. They will want to make sure that you have really strong grades, because often they can't influence your academic results. So the more that they see good academic results, the more that you are going to become a candidate where they are going to be more interested in recruiting you. Okay. So what's also important is that the transcripts need to be sent to the NCAA. Once you set up a profile account, we encourage you to do that after every year of you completing year 9, 10, and 11. For instance, if you are finishing year 9 right now, I encourage you at the start of the school next year to go to your career practitioner or whoever your staff member is at your school that would be responsible for that, and have them send it to the NCAA. I would not do it obviously at this part of the year because everyone is getting so busy with exams. And because of COVID-19, we know that the schools have pivoted and the exams have been extended, and that timetable changed a little bit as well. So that was all that we had to share with you today in regards to going through the core courses. We are more than happy to open it up for questions. We are more than happy to take questions that people want to either put in the Facebook Live section or also have put on in the question and answer feature as well. We're going to have Sarah also. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. We're also going to have Sarah come back online as well. And we're going to move through a couple of those questions. So in regards to anyone wanting to ask a question online, would someone like to put up their hand and we can unmute you and you can ask your question directly? So I'm not sure if anyone is brave enough to.
So not at the moment, but Samantha, I'll read you one of the questions that's come in just so you can answer it while we get some brave people waiting to put up their hands. Can you just clarify what subjects fall under the social science umbrella?
Sure. So I wonder if I can go back on my PowerPoint. Can you all see the PowerPoint there that I'm moving through, Sarah?
Not right now. You need to reshare, I believe.
All right. Oh, I thought I reshared it. Sorry. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. So that list there, see the social science column towards the end of the page? They are all social science classes. So traditionally in Australia, it is classes like economics, geography, history, humanities, psychology, sociology, and world history. So they are common examples, but that's also not a definitive list. So we hope that's helpful.
Great. And let me just ask you another question that's come in. I'll read you out the questions.
Sure.
When filling out an eligibility form, it actually asks for your GPA. How do you work around that as an international student coming from Australia?
I would just put in not available international student and they will completely understand. That same
just to emphasize, that's
question.
completely common.
Oh, sorry, Sarah.
I was just saying it's common. Every student from Australia will be entering the same thing, so don't worry about entering that at all.
And that's also something that you'll be asked when you actually register for an SAT or an ACT as well in regards to your GPA. Just say not available international student, and everyone will understand that as well. I've also seen another question come up in our webinar questions. International Baccalaureate is also IB. So it's just obviously the official name for IB. So I've also seen that question come in for Grace that I can also answer. So if you do 2 different subjects that only go for 1 semester each, I'm going to give you an example on how to address that. I'm going to just share my screen again. So I have shared my screen, and Sarah, you can see the Division I worksheet there?
Yes, it's on screen.
All right. So for that social science example, you'll see that it's box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down the page. This is a PDF. We would tell you to do a similar design in an Excel spreadsheet. And everyone that attended today's session will provide that Excel spreadsheet in the mail out that we do today, if you've registered. If you're listening to us on Facebook Live, you can still register or send us an email and we'll make sure we get the information out to you as well. So in regards to social sciences, what you would do here is, let's just pretend we've done geography and history for 1 semester. You would put geography as the course title, and for the credit, instead of doing 1, which would be for a whole year, you would do 0.5. So 0.5 would be a 1 semester class. If you are also a school that does trimesters, you could also do a trimester fraction as well. So then that would mean if you were doing one semester classes and that's how you wanted to do social sciences, you would have to list 4 subjects here. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And Samantha, your explanation now actually addresses a couple of other questions that we've got coming in during the Q&A and the chat. And it really does come around explaining the value of a credit and how an Australian course can count in credits. I guess for students, it's just a bit confusing. So just to clarify what you've said, my understanding, and hopefully students understand the same, is if you do a course for 1 year, so you do English for 1 year, that's 1 credit. If you only do 1 semester, so half a year of English, that's 0.5 credit. That's
correct. And how you could also enter this, if you see the top of this flyer that's on the screen, you'll see that English, the example up there, it says English Year 9.5. So what that also means that if you get a different grade for semester 1 versus semester 2, you would then, if you wanted to calculate your GPA, you could say, I got a point for my semester 1 in Year 9, I got a B, which is 0.5. And for my semester 2 in Year 9, because I concentrated more, I got an A. So then you would put a 0.5 and A. So if you did want to calculate your GPA, this worksheet would allow you to do that. So if you wanted to create a sense of what your GPA would translate to, so that you can talk to US college coaches and say, I'm a strong academic and my calculated GPA would be equivalent to a 3.5, that would be okay for you to do. Again, it's not necessary, but it can be a good way for you to talk to the coaches about your academic results. And that's why I would have your school do a 1-page summary result, because you could provide that to the coaches and they would have a sense of what your academic results are like, especially during the times right now where we really don't have the ability in some states to sit the SAT or the ACT. So if you haven't done that test yet and you can't show them your academic prowess because of that result, then again, you supplying them your transcript could be a way that they could evaluate that.
Thank you so much, Samantha. Let me just read you another question that's come in now. I thought that was a great explanation. Do the additional subjects, so the category additional subjects, need to be the same subject each year?
Oh, ask me that again.
So additional subjects, do they need to be the same subject for over the 4-year period? So I believe they're saying if they do religion in year 9, could they do?
No, that's fine.
Perfect. So
of course,
additional subjects do
no
not.
dramas at all. That's right. There's also a question on the webinar that's come through, and I think it's Kerry that shared it with us. And Kerry, we may not be able to answer that question online with you today, but if it's an outdoor education class, I think you'll find that that will not be accepted. If it's an environmental studies class, it may. So we may need to talk to you a little bit offline in regards to how that is. But if it's a traditional outdoor ed class, it will not count.
Great, thanks, Samantha. I'll read another question that's come in now. Does the 4-year window to complete your degree start if you start a degree in Australia and then transfer to a US college, or does it start only when you're in the US?
So I'm not sure if I understand that question.
I believe they're asking about an undergraduate degree. So if they start Australian uni here for 1 year, and then they transfer to the US and they play for NCAA, can they play for 4 years? Peter is the person who asked that question. So if it's wrong, please clarify, Peter.
So the question is, sometimes it will depend. And there is a separate set of rules that you need to comply with for transfers if you're in college. The colleges that you talk to will let you know if they're okay with that or not. My only probably pieces of warning or be careful is that coaches probably want to have the maximum amount of time that they can with a student athlete. So they're probably going to prefer to always recruit 4-year student athletes anyway. That doesn't mean you can't be recruited. It just means it's a little bit more difficult. And some sports do have rules, and we would ask you to have that checked with the NCAA.
Great, thanks, Samantha. Another question that's come in now from Thea. If subjects are not completed in all 4 key courses, how does this change eligibility to study in the US?
So this does become a problem. Again, I am not the NCAA, and we would have you work with them. But there are a couple of things that the NCAA are also aware of. For instance, please don't quote me because it's always under the discretion of the NCAA, but you may be short one subject, but you also might be an A grade student. So the NCAA may review that, and you may also classify as an early qualifier with the NCAA. So what that means and what we encourage is that if you have all your transcripts given to the NCAA after the end of year 11, and you are being actively recruited by a coach that early, the NCAA can review you at the end of year 11, and you may be classified as an early qualifier, which means you're given your green stamp and you are eligible to be recruited and play athletics, which means if you're then short a subject, they don't care about where you go from there. So the more that you're organized, the better that is. The other opportunity that you may have, and again, the NCAA needs to clarify this, is that sometimes there is quite a gap year between starting at a US college and finishing at an Australian institution. They might also allow you to do an online class that they could send you to one of their approved providers, and that could also help you be fully qualified as well by the time you get to the NCAA. So there are things that they can work with you about, which is why you should engage with the NCAA as early as possible. But again, we are giving you some advice on what we've heard. If that policy changes, then obviously the NCAA is the only one that can be the authoritative source in confirming that with you.
Thank you so much, Samantha. We've had a few more questions come in about what counts as certain courses. So do you mind going back to the PowerPoint presentation slide that had
Give me a sec.
the courses on it? So we have one question saying, does Christian studies count as a social science? And one saying, does business and economics count as a social science?
So I don't know where, is it business on its own and economics on its own, or is it business and economics? So we would probably need to have that clarified a little bit. But I believe both of those would be there. Give me a sec. So so we would probably need to have that evaluated. So under that title alone, perhaps not. I don't know where that student is coming from. So I think it's come from Ada. If you can let us know what state you're in as well, that would be great. Economics on its own is, but business studies traditionally has not been approved. And I don't think it will be approved.
Great, thank you. So I'll just read another question. Oh, sorry, Ada's come back and said Victoria, Samantha.
Okay, so I think they're two separate subjects. So if that's the case, economics does count. Business or business studies would not count, and it might need to be checked.
Great. Another question that comes in, what happens if I've been at two different schools over the 4 years?
Yeah, no problem at all. You'd need to work with your original school and them supplying you, obviously, the transcripts. But if also that was too hard, the school that is going to help you with your final application can upload those transcripts on your behalf. And that's pretty common, and that wouldn't be an issue.
Perfect, great. So I think we've answered all the questions that have come in via the Facebook, and I'm just checking the Q&A, but I think we've gotten most of those as well, Samantha.
So Timothy, the asterisks are explained in that guide, but it's part, I think it's called the words broken down, political and science. So it's referring to the full complete combination of those titles. But the asterisk is also explained in the guide. There's also another question on how do you fill in this worksheet if you're an IB student? It makes no difference because you still do all the appropriate subjects in regards to how that works. So that should be fine. But I also encourage you to look at the IB section within the website. And I believe there's also a link available for you as well. I think we've also caught up with all the questions.
Yes.
So we'll also be able to respond to some of that. The IB section is going to be in this big booklet. So again, this is on the NCAA website. We will also share this link with you. That was my daughter saying hello. And then this document will have the IB section, which is easy to find as well.
Great, just quickly, Samantha, I've noticed two questions that we've missed. One, does the Duke of Edinburgh count towards entry, or is it recognised?
So I must admit, I'm not completely aware of that. I do believe you could build it into your profile of you doing it as a student, but you won't get any direct credit or core acknowledgement. But it will actually help you write about yourself in your profile and why you should be recruited and what you would have to offer on that particular US campus.
Brilliant. And the other one we missed was they're wondering if their son chooses not to do core courses for year 12, will that disadvantage them? So I'm assuming in this circumstance, they've already made up the requirements.
As long as he's already met the 16 core requirements, that could be okay. As long as he's happy with his grades, that also reflect that. If you're not doing core subjects, does that mean you're not doing math and you're not doing science? So that may depend on what US college you can apply to. Again, that may require you to talk to Sarah or I offline in regards to what that means a little bit more.
Great. And the last one, Samantha, which is actually probably from yesterday's session, but I'll just get you to quickly answer it now to help the student out, is how do we get scouted? Do we need to make a highlight video of the sport?
Yeah, so Vinith, thanks for your question. It sounds like you missed our session yesterday, and that's okay. But because Sarah and I are also incredibly nice, one of the things that we'll do if you've registered is that we'll send you the after event email from that session yesterday, because a highlight video and your sports resume become a critical component on you being recruited as a student athlete. So if you've never been to any of our sessions before, and that question makes me think that you haven't, please continue to stay engaged with us. And you can even watch yesterday's session that is also on our Facebook site. So if you watch the Facebook site, you'll see that that's required. How about you watch it, send an email to Sarah or I, depending on what region you're in, give us a question, and then we'll send you the after event email as your reward for watching that video.
That's all the questions, Samantha.
So we do hope this has been really helpful. We know that sometimes families feel that this is really hard to navigate. We do hope that this has simplified the process. Please continue to reach out to us. When you create a profile with the NCAA, one of the things that I would like to show you, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second, and I would like to show you something else. Give me 1 second. Is that one of the things so one of the things that I'm just going to bring us live on the International Student landing page. Give me 1 second as I bring that on screen. So as we mentioned earlier, you should always start on the International Students landing page. I'm just going to share my screen. And this is what the International Student Athlete landing screen is. Reminding you a couple of things of what we looked at today. This is where we clicked here to see what Australia's programs were recognised. But if you also scroll down to the bottom of the page, they also have some other brilliant resources for you. Once you have created a profile with the NCAA eligibility account, what they will do is they will generate a 10-digit ID number, for you. And every time you communicate with the NCAA, you'll see under this Contact Us, the NCAA Eligibility Centre International Contact Form. I'm going to click that, and hopefully you see that on my page now. But if you are ever sending correspondence to the NCAA, I would always use this contact form, because what it does, it enables you to always put in your details, your NCAA ID number, and it means all your communication that you have with them about your circumstances will always be put on file. So if you've got any questions that is not clear, if you've got a question that you're aspiring to go to an NCAA and you think you're going to be short, it is always okay to send the NCAA eligibility questions. They are a fantastic team of people. Sarah and I know them very well. Last year, they came to Australia to do in-country programming. Ironically, they were scheduled to join us this August for incoming programming, but we know that travel to Australia is obviously being halted. We'll be working with all the organisations next year to do programming as well. So we hope that it will be in country, but if it is not, we will do some virtual programming where the decision makers from these organisations will be able to also directly answer your questions. I'll just stop sharing that screen now and bring Sarah and I back. I think you've been able to probably see that we've answered a lot of questions today. There was no one brave in asking questions to screen, but before we bring this session to a close, would someone like to ask a question of us to screen? Otherwise, this will be the end of today's session. So my last poll that I'd like to obviously share that I've just sent live is one of the things that we hope is that your schools that you are working with are aware of your aspiration. And we'd just like to know how many of you have approached your classes or your teachers or your career coordinators and let them know of this process and pathway. So Sarah and I are absolutely ecstatic that, oh, it's dwindling a little bit, but 61% of attendees have been talking to their schools, which is great. My remaining 39%, we encourage you to reach out to your schools. If you reach out to them and this is all brand new to them, please know that Sarah and I work with all the schools in our regions and we are happy to support them in any way possible. So connect with our officers, connect with us, and continue to enjoy our programming. And we do hope that you found tonight's session really helpful. Closing comments, Sarah?
Thank you all for joining. And like Samantha said, please reach out. Good evening.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Good night.